So, with the weirdo vicissitudes of YouTube, you might have heard the earlier video later or right now, so it may be a little confusing. So, that video was kind of like a half video on Aaron's bizarre grip on anti Scientology. So, let me step back for people who are totally new. Scientology, I think we can label a very dangerous cult, although the danger level will vary depending on who is a member, who is affected, etc., etc. But generally speaking, it's a pretty ugly organization. But then we have people inside the organization. And for a while, the line Aaron was trying to pull on people was that he wasn't, quote, attacking people in Scientology. He was helping the victims of Scientology. But a lot of recent scandals have put what he and his SPTV Foundation people have been doing into doubt. And Katherine Olson is probably one of the most really interesting, fascinating cases. So let me get to the basics with her in terms of why this is so fascinating. Well, at the most basic level, Claire and Mark Headley did a lot to help her get out. Now, they weren't the only ones. Her family also had made concerted efforts, but Katherine had been in Scientology for a long time, from the 90s up until, I guess, technically the late 2010s. And the COVID crisis and other things start to push her away from Scientology. And you might think this is a success story for Aaron because he co founded the Aftermath Foundation. And yes, it did substantially help Catherine. But the victory goes to Claire and Mark Headley because they did most of the heavy lifting. And Aaron, to his credit, did feature Catherine on his channel. But you'll notice that when he quotes talks about the good times when he was running the Aftermath Foundation, he doesn't really bring up Catherine at all because, again, this is more of a Claire issue than his issue. So he did promote Catherine for a while, but then, of course, when there was the falling out last year between the Aftermath people, Catherine kind of just went away from his channel and did not return. And again, to be fair, Catherine is more obviously pro Claire and pro Mark, and her online presence is decidedly more in their favor. But she had a very nice talk with Lindsay going through some of her history, and her history is huge. So I'm only going through the basics here. But I did find something interesting when she did decide to leave. She emphasized it was the soft approach that really worked. And that's something the Squirrel people and SPTV Foundation people are not really clarifying. It seemed to be before, the way I understood it, the fight was against Scientology, the organization, but then you were also trying to help, paradoxically, people in Scientology. Now, not all of these people were good people or nice people or even innocent people, but the general understanding was the senior leadership was bad, but people below the senior leadership were good people. But with Aaron, that message has become more and more diluted or perverted or mixed because William Good and some of the squirrels are like, no, we're not here to help people. We're here to just yell and scream at them and just destroy the whole thing. You're saying to yourself, well, there you go. You yourself are saying Scientology a bad thing, therefore destroy the thing. The problem is, of course, well, yeah, but if you destroy the thing, what's going to happen to the people inside the thing? How are they going to adjust to life? Are they going to adjust to life? Who's going to handle the people who leave these buildings? Are you even going to take care of these people? And there, they haven't really clarified. It seems the SBTV Foundation people are saying they're going to try to help people to get out, but then we actually look at their real life efforts and they're mostly just harassing, attacking, screaming, and yelling. And their own records, more and more, that we look at them as they're a bunch of criminals, grifters, and liars. So you're kind of like, wait, all right, so you're interested in destroying the thing, and a lot of people are going to get hurt, and you don't really care if they've been victimized or not. How is Aaron the hero in all this movement, in all this situation? I don't quite know, and he still hasn't clarified. Again, I'm not saying let's believe everything Catherine says, because some of her stories do jive with Aaron's narrative, but some of it does not. I found one of the anecdotes she said pretty interesting that she knew one of the top people in Scientology. Like, we're talking like the really top people, and that's Jenny DeVoch. That's her name at the time. And her experiences with Jenny were like, fine. Now, if you look into Jenny's record, it's pretty horrifying. She's a pretty evil, violent person. But she's just saying, from her own experience, they were fine. But she's not denying she heard stories of Jenny being horrible, but her own personal experience with Jenny is she wasn't that bad. It is interesting to note, though, that one of the major things that did make her leave was, yes, of course, being in the Sea Org, she received a physical beating from one of her senior people. And here's the twist, that was a woman. wasn't a man, right? It was a woman administering a beating. And here's the deep, dark irony. It's because she was refusing to do something off policy in Scientology terms. Namely, she was actually adhering to Scientology teachings, but this made that senior official really angry and she received a beating. And that actually got an expose online too. So it's a pretty interesting story about how she got into the Sea Org, became disillusioned, and left. But the theme for the day is if you do want to help people get out, then the gentle approach is better. So I would recommend the interview with Lindsay as well as the interview with Claire Headley. Again, I'm not saying let's believe every word she says or every word Claire says, but again, they do have a track record here that the soft approach overall has yielded better results. I'm not saying let's now use the soft approach in all cases. In some cases, yeah, people should be very harsh. People should be mocking Scientology. People should be, quote, be willing to be very visceral, but it should definitely be attuned to the right context and the right person. Obviously, with people like Jenny or David Miscavige, they're pretty awful, horrible people, but using this generalized, brutal approach to everyone or every Scientologist is somewhat suspicious. It's also very hypocritical that when the same harsh attitude is taken towards the SPTV Foundation people, they get really angry. Well, again, if you're going to be very harsh towards other people, it's the golden rule. You have to be willing to be subjected it to yourself, right? Like if you're only willing to subject other people to brutality, but not experience it, it just shows, well, I don't think you're really interested in, quote, being anti-Scientologists. I think it seems like you're just bullies and grifters in disguise and just using the cover to basically feel good, which seems a lot closer to Scientology than anti-Scientology, in my humble opinion.